Imagine being married off at the age of 6, not to a boy, not to someone from your homeland, but to a mad king, twice your age, who speaks a different language, rules a foreign land, and will soon forget your name. This is not fiction. This is a true story of Isabella of Valois, child queen of England, political pawn of France, and a tragic symbol of how young girls were once offered to kings like sacrificial lambs. She had no say in her fate, but history had plenty to say about hers. Before we step into the eerie silence of Isabella's life, pause for a second. If you love forgotten royalty, strange medieval politics, and the kind of true stories that make fairy tales look tame, hit that like button and subscribe, because the next story, it's even darker. Paris, 1389. Isabella of Valois is born into the powerful but fractured house of Valois. Her father, King Charles VI of France, rules a kingdom teetering on the edge of chaos. He is a king by title, but his mind, that would soon become his prison. Charles begins to suffer terrifying psychotic breaks. In one of his infamous episodes, he kills 4 of his own knights in a paranoid frenzy. In another, he refuses to bathe, eats barely anything, and forgets his own name. And perhaps most hauntingly, he believes he is made of glass, terrified of shattering if touched. The court is tense, dangerous, paranoia reigns. France becomes a stage for power-hungry dukes and factions, each waiting for the king's next breakdown to stake their claims. And amid this swirling storm is little Isabella, a princess, innocent, silent. Then comes a proposal. Across the Channel, England has its own issues. King Richard II is ruling with increasing absolutism. He is poetic, intelligent, but volatile. Tensions with his nobles simmer beneath the surface, and war with France has dragged on for generations. So when the idea of peace through marriage is proposed, both sides see an opportunity. Richard demands a Valois princess to seal the deal. He wants not just peace, but to elevate his status with a glittering royal French bride. And France, eager to calm its northern border and stall internal unrest, agrees. They choose Isabella. She is 6 years old. In October 1396, Isabella is paraded before Richard in Calais. Chroniclers describe her as poised beyond her years, dressed in shimmering French silk, speaking lines she rehearsed endlessly. Richard is smitten. He calls her his little queen. But behind the display of diplomacy and pageantry, there's an undeniable truth. This is not a marriage. It's a transaction. Richard is 29. Isabella is 6. Their wedding is lavish but symbolic only. The marriage won't be consummated until she reaches 12 or older, and in the meantime, she is handed over to England with a dowry of 800,000 francs. From that moment, her life belongs to a foreign kingdom. England greets Isabella with grandeur, but it is a cold, ceremonial affection. She is crowned Queen of England in Westminster Abbey in 1397. The event is opulent. Gold embroidery, priceless jewels, and orchestras fill the cathedral. The people cheer, but it's all a mask. Behind closed doors, whispers stay. The English nobility are restless. To them, Isabella is a burden, a French child in royal robes. She brings no alliance, no heirs, no immediate value. Her household, funded by taxpayers, grows enormous. More than 300 servants and courtiers, many of whom are gradually replaced by English personnel, stripping her of her native language and culture. Her daily life becomes a study in isolation. She lives in grand castles, Windsor, Eltham, and others, but with few freedoms. She is doted on by nannies and guards, but has no friends her age. She plays with dolls and embroidery, while ministers debate her allowance. Her French attendants, who gave her comfort, are dismissed one by one. Richard visits only on occasion. When he does, he is gentle and affectionate. Some say paternal. He gives her books, dolls, and pets. But he is distracted. His hold on power is slipping. The political atmosphere darkens. Richard grows paranoid, executing nobles he sees as threats. He exiles rivals. His reign becomes more dictatorial. And in 1399, everything changes. Richard departs to suppress a rebellion in Ireland. While he is gone, his exiled cousin, Henry Bolingbroke, son of John of Gaunt, returns to England with an army. His campaign is swift, calculated, and devastatingly effective. By the time Richard returns, it's over. He is captured, imprisoned, and eventually deposed. Henry crowns himself Henry IV. Isabella, just 10 years old, is now the widow of a living man. She is moved to Windsor Castle. Guarded, cut off, she waits for news, and then hears the unimaginable. Richard is dead. Some say he starved himself. Others claim he was murdered. The truth? Lost to history. No public funeral. No farewell. Isabella, in her grief, wears white, the French color of mourning. She clutches the memory of a man who treated her more as a daughter than a wife. A man who, for all his flaws, saw her as more than a pawn. Now, she's just a piece on a board no one wants to play. Henry IV, seeking to smooth tensions, offers her a new marriage. His own son, Henry of Monmouth, the future Henry V. Politically, it makes sense, but Isabella refuses. At 10 years old, she says no to the most powerful man in England. It is one of the few acts of agency she has ever granted. Her refusal enrages Henry IV. To him, it is an insult, but to Isabella, it is all she has left. Her mourning for Richard is not just grief, it is rebellion. Henry tightens his grip. He sees her not as a child grieving, but as a political obstacle, one that needs to be contained. Her already limited freedoms are stripped away entirely. Her rooms are watched. Her conversations are overheard. Her letters, what few she is allowed to write, are intercepted and censored. Isabella becomes a ghost in her own life. She is no longer queen, no longer wife, just a relic of a fallen regime. 2 years pass, slowly, painfully, and then, finally, mercy. In 1401, after tense negotiations and mounting pressure from the French court, Isabella is allowed to return home. But home no longer exists. The journey across the channel is quiet. No cheering crowds, no trumpets. She is received in France not as a triumphant bride returning, but as a reminder of a failed alliance, a discarded token of royal ambition. Her father, King Charles VI, is worse than ever. He no longer recognizes his own children. Her mother, Queen Isabel, is locked in political infighting, accused of both corruption and betrayal by rival factions. Civil war simmers beneath the surface. France is crumbling, and Isabella, now 11, is caught in the wreckage. She drifts in and out of court life, too young to be useful, too tainted by English scandal to be trusted. Her name is spoken only in whispers. For 5 years, she lives this way, but the scars run deeper than even her silence can hide. In public, she is graceful and composed. In private, she is solemn all beyond her years. And still, the world isn't done using her. At 16, Isabella is told she will marry again, this time to Charles, Duke of Orleans, a French noble with royal blood. The match is politically useful, yes, but not urgent. There is time, and in that time, something unusual happens. They meet, they talk, and slowly, incredibly, they like each other. Charles is close in age, sensitive, literary, a patron of poetry, music, and the arts. He does not treat Isabella as a pawn or burden. He treats her as a woman, and Isabella agrees to the marriage. For the first time, it is her decision. Their wedding in 1406 is modest by royal standards, but the tone is different. There is laughter. There are no foreign banners, no tension-filled negotiations. Just two young people, trying to make something real out of the ruins of their inherited roles. For the first time, Isabella lives without fear, without pretending. She and Charles are said to walk the gardens together. They read poems aloud to one another. They talk late into the night. For once, Isabella is not a queen, not a widow, not a prize. She is simply herself. But fate is cruel. In 1409, she becomes pregnant. The court rejoices. A child would solidify the House of Orleans. Hope flickers in the dark. But childbirth in the medieval world is a gamble, and Isabella, frail from years of stress and malnutrition, pays a price. She dies giving birth to a son. Her body, so often clothed in royal fabrics, is placed in a simple tomb. No pageantry, no procession, just quiet. She was 19. Her son, Jean of Orleans, survives. He will grow up to become a soldier, a patron of poets, and a political player in the 100 Years' War. His life will be marked by battle and honor, and in him, a small piece of Isabella continues. But Isabella, her name fades. She becomes a ghost in the pages of history, a casualty not of war, but of peace. A young girl used to tie two kingdoms together, and then discarded when the knots unraveled. There are no grand tombs built in her honor, no stained glass windows bearing her face. In most accounts, she is little more than a footnote, yet in her silence there was something profoundly brave. She endured the crushing weight of two monarchies. She was passed between kings like a token, lived in exile as a child, and stood in mourning as a widow before she was even a teenager. She resisted when she could. She loved when love was offered. And she chose dignity over duty, even when the world refused her choices. Isabella didn't write laws or lead armies, but her life reveals the cost of every treaty signed in haste, every alliance sealed with a wedding vow, and every child sacrificed on the altar of diplomacy. She reminds us of the quiet victims of history, the ones who didn't leave behind conquests or castles, but instead quiet tragedies, the kind of tragedies that still echo. Isabella of Valois died at 19, but she lived every one of those years more fully than anyone could have expected. She mattered, not because she ruled, but because she endured. And sometimes, enduring is the greatest rebellion of all. History often remembers the loudest voices, the conquerors, the kings, the rebels. But sometimes, it's the quiet ones who speak the loudest truths. Isabella of Valois was never meant to rule. She was meant to be used, moved, forgotten, but she resisted where she could. She mourned when no one asked her to. She loved when she was told she could only obey. Her life was short, tragic, quiet, but it mattered. If you want more stories like Isabella's, forgotten queens, cursed kingdoms, and the human lives behind royal masks, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thank you, and see you in the next episode of Dark Lore.